Daredevil episode 8, Shadows in the Glass. I love this episode. I thought it was really cool to get a history lesson really on Wilson Fisk and how he grew up and seeing his day-to-day life and how he wakes up every morning. He has these nightmares which are really just memories of what he's gone through, like the most traumatic experience that he's lived through. And he wakes up and we find out, and I love the way they did this, but we find out why the Rabbit in a Snowstorm picture or painting is so crucial to him, because it reminds him visually of that wall he stared at when his father would sit him down and say, think about the man you want to become. And how he looked at this wall when he was thinking, and how in that moment of him thinking, it quickly, very quickly led to him knowing who he wanted to be, knowing that although he would be a man who would become violent, he wanted to be violent for what he thought were the right reasons, to help protect certain things, whether it was someone else or ultimately in that case when he was younger, himself. And I thought it was incredibly well done. I really enjoyed it, and I wasn't expecting it to go that way in the flashbacks, admittedly. I thought what happened was that his father was the character. His father being that type of character, I expected that. And, it was obvious from the very beginning how his character was going to act. And what I initially thought was him having this bad deal with, a gangster saying, like, I'm going to get this loan from a loan shark who most likely will bring certain people in. I thought he would find his father dead, or maybe both his parents, really, or, just something insane. But he actually killed his father. His mother went straight to work. She was like, all right, get the saw. We got to chop this body up and, make our lives okay. But it was very interesting. I loved watching that. I loved getting to see Wilson Fisk really have, the worst moment he's had so far in the series, and it was great to watch him flip out. It was the best scene of this episode by far. Was when he's at home, and it's like, he's enjoying his day, he's doing his normal routine, which we got to see nightmare, look at the painting, wake up, and start making an omelet, sit down by himself at this really nice table in his amazing apartment, sprinkle a little salt, a little pepper, a little green onions, and eat it, put a suit on, do the same thing, same cufflinks every day, every time, same thing, and go out. And one day, this gets messed up, and he gets a interesting visit from one of his business partners, and that was without a doubt the best part of the episode. Like, we always had the stuff with Nobu, and they mention how he's always angry, and Leland, he's kind of like in the middle, where it's like he's not exactly happy, but at the same time he's always so funny with it. Like, he's just sarcastic and like, oh, we have like a random like a minor convenience, amazing, let's throw an effing parade, this is perfect now. Or whenever something goes wrong, he's like, oh, well, look at that, what a shock. So it's always fun watching him sort of balance in between, like, being really angry but being funny and sarcastic about it. And then we have I wish I could think of her name. I already forgot. I want to say it's Miss Chen, but I'm almost 100% sure that I have that wrong. But Miss Gao, because her name's actually right here. Thank goodness. Miss Gao, like, so off of Miss Chen. I don't know where that came from. But Miss Gao, when she comes to visit him, and it's really simple, as like, she comes in, and, it was normal. At first, like, the first thing I was thinking was, okay, she's coming to his house. I figured maybe they might actually know where his house is. Like, he might actually be that confident to tell them stuff like that. And, that's fine. That's what I was thinking. And the conversation continues on. We find out that she speaks apparently all languages, which I thought was awesome. I loved her in this episode. I was just like, I love this woman. Like, she's awesome. And so she kind of gets rid of Wesley. It's like, and they did the thing, and I don't know if any of you guys watched my last review, but they did the thing again where they start the subtitles like halfway in the sentence or something, and it's like, yeah, we could figure out what some people are saying. Like, when she mentions that it was like he doesn't need you to complete his sentences or whatever. And then after that, she starts speaking Chinese again. And she goes through and then it says, "Do you not?" And that's the only subtitle that they have. And I can infer that her question was, "You understand and speak Chinese, do you not?" And that's how they did that. And of course, like I said, like if you could figure it out, but it's just so weird that they do it that way. It's like what's the big deal? Like, why have people infer this stuff? Like, just you can just show it. It's not, it doesn't really add to the experience. It constantly throws me off when they do stuff like that. And I'd like to know. I honestly, because I don't know all languages and stuff like that, I'd love to know the exact translations, even though it's probably, even the subtitles aren't exact translations because it's linked from one language to another. But I'd like to, know what that actual sentence would be translated into because I'm weird like that. Instead of just guessing, like, you know, you speak, Chinese, do you not? She could have said, "You understand," or something. I don't know, but it's just it stood out a lot in this episode, especially during that conversation. It was like, first half of the sentence would be nothing. Second half, it would start off with a comma and then end the sentence, and it's like, well, I'm not an idiot. I can figure out what she said, but some other stuff, like in some of those cases, like one time I thought she said Nobu's name, but it was actually talking about Wesley being there or something, and I was like, oh, I was totally wrong about that because there are no subtitles. I'm just guessing for the first half of like every sentence she's speaking in Chinese. But I love this scene, regardless of that. It was an amazing scene, and I love what she did to Wesley and Fisk because when she's like, you can leave us and stuff, or no, when she even first mentioned it, that like I know you can speak Chinese, so you can't you? And he started speaking Chinese. Wesley, he was kind of standing with his hands together, like in front of his chest, like in front of his stomach. And then when he started speaking Chinese, he kind of did like a little look, like I'm just useless now. I'm just standing around in this room. And then when she was like, you can leave us, he kind of got an angry look, like she freaking, getting me kicked out of the room. Like this is my boss. I'm here all the time. I'm translating for him. That's what I do. And he's just like this old bitch. And he's just that's just the look that he had on his face was so funny to me. Like getting me kicked out of the important meetings and stuff. And it was just really funny. Like she pissed him off. And then it got really serious when she was like, how do you think I found your house? The king inside of his own castle. And she mentioned that he got emotional. And that was, one of those things where I was trying to figure out what is she saying? Because that was one of the moments I couldn't really tell what the heck she was saying. I assumed she was talking about Vanessa, but like I was so confused. I didn't know. She mentioned like you got emotional, and it seemed like she meant, if I remember right, she mentioned something about people talking or something like that. I can't remember the exact line, but it seemed like she was about to mention Vanessa, and that's how she found out. But that's not where it went, and I was still admittedly a little confused. Like, so he got emotional. Did Vanessa hadn't been to his house? Did they follow him from the restaurant one time, and that's how that happened? I was admittedly still confused because I don't know what she was saying. The first part of that sentence, it just ended with, "You gotten emotional," and I was like, well, I don't know what that means. Like that doesn't really answer the question how she found this house. That doesn't mean anything, but it was still awesome. It was still an amazing scene. And she's, and of course when she makes him really mad, it's like, if you don't get your house in order, I'll deal with Leland and Nobu directly. And then she's walking, she's like, oh, thanks. And then she, she leaves out. And he's just super pissed, and he flips the table, and Wesley comes in and stuff, and I loved Wesley in this episode for what he did. Honestly, when he brought Vanessa in, it was actually really awesome. Of him as a character, it was kind of cool for him to know, like he's a smart character. You can tell he's a smart character, and he tries to play things well. He's like the really calm middleman because he wants things to obviously go well for all facets of their organization, but he knows that some things just need to be done, and so he gets Vanessa, and I thought that was really cool of him. And she learns everything about Fisk, like his really traumatic moment and what he's dealing with, what he's really going through right now because of Daredevil, trying to really see like I'm not an evil man just because I want to be evil or I want to hurt people. I'm seemingly evil because I want to make this city great. And I thought it was just really fun. It was great to watch. And then um, the actual ending, although I love the ending because of how it was kind of funny, but at the same time it was really cool with the actual ending. It really freaking sucked that after all this time, and it's like, Matt found out in the beginning of the episode that Foggy and Karen were working with Ben, and he decides to go to Ben, and he gives him all the info. Ben's even typing up the story. I didn't even think that was going to happen, like, at the end of this episode. I'm like, okay, no big deal. He's not going to actually do this, because he'd have, like, so little information. I don't know what he could have possibly told him off screen that he didn't already say on camera, because all he knows is his name is Fisk. He knows Leland. He knows he worked with Vladimir. And he could just say he blew up the buildings and shot the cops. That's just like, what? Like, no big deal. And it seemed like, there couldn't possibly be anything else that he could add to that. I mean, I guess he could technically add the stuff with Court and, like, the assassin that he ended up helping and stuff like that. But I felt like there wasn't that much he could have possibly added. But, Ben's typing up the paper and everything, and it's like, here's this guy, Wilson Fisk, on TV saying he'll help the city, and it was a cool little scene, and like I love the narration that they were doing, and it showed the little change. And when Fisk first woke up from the nightmare, he looked at the painting, but then he looks over, and it's like he has this person in his life now who can do far more than anyone else ever could. Like, as much as Wesley helps him deal with certain things, Vanessa's a completely different aspect of his life that he's never had before. At least, probably hasn't had when he was in this specific point in his life. And it was just great to watch. And like, she's going through, and like he was doing his island and stuff, and she comes in and gets hers. And I love the way he acts. I love the actor who plays Fisk. Like, they made it where he has like these awkward tendencies, and they really showed it in that scene. And they have the narration going, and he's like, his hands are basically like this. He's not 100% sure where to put his hands, because it's like, he does this thing with his salt, he does this thing with like the pepper and stuff, and that's 1, 2, 3, and then he eats the omelet. And so he does one, and then she comes in and hugs him and stuff, and he's like, he's happy about it. And then she sits down and she's like, oh, and she just picks the whole thing of salt up, and he's just like, he doesn't know what to do. And I love that scene. It just looked really genuine. It just looked right, and it was really funny to watch. And then she's like getting him a different suit, because he was like a freaking cartoon show character, like, what same shirt am I gonna wear today? So it was like The Simpsons or something, and he would always get the same thing. And so she comes in and gets him like a gray suit and a different shirt, and she stops him from wearing his father's cufflinks, and she gets him like the coolest ones, because they showed him, and I was like, man, those look really awesome. And I was like, I was glad she picked those up, because they just look really cool. But it was nice, and it was cool to see her really change this character who has these sort of awkward tendencies, and kind of break him out of that. Although that does mean that he might become a more powerful villain, especially with what he did at the end of this episode with announcing his name and saying, I am Wilson Fisk, and getting himself out there and trying to get ahead of the story, even though he didn't know that the story was going to be coming out. And it was such a smart play on his part, but it does suck for Ben, who had this, he has so much stuff, and it's like, he's hiding in the shadows, he's afraid of the light and this and that, and it's like, well, he just counted that sentence, and, he said his name, and I can't I can't get a jump on this guy for these illegal activities. And so it's just like, they're kind of at square one now, because he's jumped in front of the bullet and basically scared them from pulling the trigger. So I can't wait to see how things play out, but I definitely love this episode. It was great to get the history of Wilson Fisk, or at least, this insane moment, between his family and his father. We're going to make it big, I'm going to get on city council, and then it doesn't happen, and he beats this kid up, and he tells his son to just keep kicking him and stuff, and he beats his wife and all this crap. But that was how Fisk became Fisk, at least the Fisk that he is now. And it was definitely great to experience. And I can't wait to see how his character develops and how he does become a little bit more comfortable in certain circumstances, and how he does deal with Daredevil and obviously all the crazy issues that he is having right now. But love the episode, of course. I want to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, I do want to know, what are your thoughts on Fisk's sort of origin story? I guess that is, in a sense, that's what this episode was. It was kind of his origin story and how he became the character that he is right now. How he, what made him, so violent, but at the same time not violent. Like, it's, he's what made him have such a weird balance. And that's what we saw in this episode. Obviously, I loved it, but I want to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.